And then we were there for about another hour.
It's easy to ignore something, especially when we're busy. But spotting cancer sooner could save your life. If you notice something unusual, Cancer Research UK are here to help.
I woke up perfectly okay today, but soon reality kicked in. Yes, I know you're there. How could I ever forget? When you're there, you definitely make your presence felt. Needles, tubes become my companions, but yet I still live to fight another day. You see, you are me, and I am you. And together, we are strong. Yes, you are my sickle cell.
Welcome to the program again. This is DJ Jossy Ladd, and it's Rokstedi Time on Heritage Television, as usual. But today you can see from the little intro that we are definitely giving you a totally different package today. It is still entertaining, but it's entertainment, a different form of entertainment. As the situation is, I am introducing to you a lady of many parts. Obviously you've seen her with a little taste of poetry. She is a poet, she is an author, a writer. She used to be a dancer, so she is a very, very hard working daughter of the soil. She is royalty. We will talk about that later on. Our cultural heritage is paramount to her. She doesn't joke with it, and she truly represents. And most importantly, she's the deputy head of a school. So she is a lady of many parts. She has actually achieved a lot, and she's still achieving. She's been through a lot. She came, she saw, she's conquered, but she's still conquering, because she's had to go through all this with sickle cell in her system. And she has decided to come out fighting. She's still fighting, and she's still winning, and she will continue to win in the mighty name of Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you today Adejoke Haastrup, popularly known by our poetic name Crux311. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
It's a great pleasure. Obviously, like I always said to my people, when we see our own doing well, we always go to the top of the room and shout out loud. Now, this is a lady that, despite her situation, she's been through a lot, and she has achieved even more than she's been through, and we're proud of you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's a great pleasure. Now, Crux311. That is a very, very, very interesting name. And I'm being my very humble, inquisitive self. I want to get to the bottom of this. How did that name come up, first of all?
Okay, must have been like 20, 30 odd years ago. I wanted to give myself a nickname.
Right.
And I wanted something that would pretty much mirror the way I see myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends always say to me that I have loads of layers, so many facets that make up Adejoke.
That's right.
And there's that element of, you know, every time you dig, there's a little bit more, the unknown.
Absolutely.
And Crux is actually a southern star.
Yeah.
And it also stands for the unknown. So I thought, that's quite apt. It's quite unique. Not a lot of people use that. So yeah, Crux. But then I thought, well, I've got to put my own twist on it.
Absolutely.
And the way I live life, you know, I believe in the triad, you know, body, mind, and soul working together. And that's where the 3 came from. I thought I couldn't
Body,
leave
mind,
it.
and soul.
Yeah. I thought I couldn't just leave it at that, because there's more to the story that sits behind that. So the first one, and that is why it's not 311, you have to break it down, so it's Crux311. The first one signifies the fact that we have one life to live. There are no rehearsals.
Absolutely.
You know, you need to learn to embrace the present. Whatever situation you're in, you embrace it.
Absolutely.
The second number 1, it means coming first. Give it your best shot. So the embodiment of Crux311 is pretty much, you don't know what is in front of you. There'll always be that element of the unknown. You've got one life to live and one chance at making it count. So go ahead and live. Stop existing.
Brilliant. I've also, in that little brief explanation, I've learned something from that. Crux, you don't know. I mean, and that is a fact of life. We all don't know what this life brings, but we know that we only have one life, and we know that if we give it our best shot, we can always get one result.
Yep.
Be the best that we can.
Yep.
Be the number one.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Now, where did this journey start from? I mean, obviously, were you born here and taken home, or were you born back home? Did it start here in the UK, or did it start in Nigeria, or did it start somewhere else?
Okay, so with sickle cell, obviously, it's a genetic disorder.
Yeah.
So I was born with it. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I see it as a positive now. You know, I'm one of 5 children, and I'm the only one that has sickle cell. Back in the day in England, when I was born, people didn't know a lot about it, because it is more, or it started off as, you know, an African disorder. And I call it one of those, you know, freaks of nature, because I'm not sure if you're aware, but the whole idea behind sickle cell was, can't remember what year it was, but there was the malaria epidemic that was wiping out Africans, and nature decided to take care of its own. So what nature did was take the normal red blood cells and change the chemical bound, creating the crescent cells that I have more of in my system, and that stopped people dying from malaria. But it then developed another problem, which was the sickle cell. So people stopped dying. And, you know, it was solely in Africa then. So being born here, I'm not going to give my age up on air.
Nah, that's all right. I'll let
but
you off.
60s, in the 60s,
okay.
it was quite hard, because, you know, you're there, excruciating pain, and, you know, they didn't even know what to do with me. You know, the journeys back and forth, hospitals, and they didn't really know. My parents were actually told that I'll be lucky to live to the age of 7. So I must say, the first 7 years of my life, I was pampered like no man's business.
Absolutely.
And as a mother myself, I can just about try and imagine what it was like for my parents being told that this child of yours might not see her 7th birthday. So it's been a journey and a half. But through the years, what I've learned to do is have that, you know, grit and determination. You know, it's not going to kill me. Everyone's going to die one day.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing I always say is, as long as I have breath and I wake up the next morning,
The
then
journey continues.
it does.
Absolutely.
I'll keep fighting.
That's right. That's right. That's what I like to hear. It's absolutely fantastic. But that is the situation with the sickle cell part of things. But despite all that, you still manage to live your normal life. Tell us a little bit about your background. Education, where you grew up, what you did, all leading to when you decide to come back to the UK.
Okay.
Obviously, you were born here. You were taken to Nigeria. Tell us a little bit, as much as you can.
Okay,
About
born
your past
here.
history.
Spent the first 8 years of my life here in the UK with my parents, and as they did back in the day then, they decided to take us back to Nigeria. So I was in Nigeria at the age of 8, 9, and I went to a primary school in Surulere called Ideal Girls School.
I know it very well. Being a Surulere boy myself.
Okay. We lived in Ijesha Tedo
I know it just very
in
well.
Lagos. Secondary school, obviously, through it all. And school, I think I could count, you know, how many days in a term that I spent in school. You know, but I still managed to make good grades. I went to Government College Ojo, which LASU stole our site in the end.
Yeah, I know.
And I was actually one of the last sets to stay in the buildings there. After that, I went to university. I went to Ondo State University.
Okay.
Now it's called, I think, Advocacy University, I think it's called now. But when I was there, it started off as Obafemi Awolowo University. Then they changed it to Ondo State University. And I graduated with a degree in chemistry. All the while then, when I was in uni, I've just been one of those people where I'm a strong believer that what hasn't killed me can only make me stronger.
Absolutely.
So even with my sickle cell, you know, I was part of a dance group in university.
You're joking.
And I was.
You don't like that? Okay. How chronic was the sickle cell? Because I have had
Well,
relatives.
it is, I mean, put it this way, when I did my O-levels, I sat part of my exams in a hospital bed.
Wow.
You know, I have visits into hospitals. It was like second home. I have this joke that, you know, wherever I live, I have a mortgage in whichever hospital is near me. You know, I sort of like have a mortgage. Right. So it's been hard, you know, but at the end of the day, the way I see life is that you've got to keep going. I have a choice, and that's the way I see my life. The choice that I have is I could play the victim, and it could always be boo-hoo, poor me.
Oh, yeah.
The second choice I do have,
I give up.
yeah, you know, and the second choice I have is be the survivor. I ride my hard waves, you know, and with age, what I've been able to do, I know when I'm sickling. And I've gotten to a point where I can deal with a lot, where it becomes now mind over matter. So I could still sit and have a conversation with people
without them realizing.
And without them realizing that I'm actually sickling.
Having a crisis.
Yeah, they wouldn't know that. So I can sort of like, and I know the triggers, I know the signs, I know when I need 999, you know, and I know when I'm allowed, I self-medicate at home, and even with my medication, they come in waves. So you try the first bit, and then that's not kicking in, you go to the second stage. That's not kicking in, you give it some hours, you go to the third stage, hit the fourth stage, which would be morphine at home, you know. And if that doesn't kick in, then I know, okay, I need intervention.
Right, let's go. Honestly, I just can't admire you enough. You are really a very, very strong personality, and I'm sure a lot of people at home who are in situations, similar situations, no matter how different it is. Once you have challenges, please learn from this lady. What has not killed you will never defeat you. Yeah. Okay, the only time you're defeated is when you're down and out. As long as you're not, then make sure that you keep fighting. Let's go back to that bit. I'm not going to let you talk over it.
The dancing.
The dancing.
Okay,
yes.
the joke about that.
Yeah.
And this is like a quick shout out to my people from Osua, Thrills. That was what the group was called then. It's a shame in a way, because my dancing was a bit weird, because my strain of sickle cell was such that I had a 1 in 200 chance of losing my hip.
Wow.
And at the age of 11, I had a very bad crisis which affected my left hip. So as I talk to you here, I'm actually a bionic woman.
You joking.
So I've had a total hip replacement. So my left hip, I've got screws. It's fun when you're traveling, because I set off the alarms and everything. But I hadn't had the operation then, and I actually had to learn how to walk, because when my hip went, when it died on me, you know, for about 2 years, you know, I was pretty much a cripple. Wow. I was on traction. And then eventually, you know, you have the sort of Zimmer frames, and you know what it's like back in Nigeria. So this was in Nigeria. Yeah, and then I then graduated to, you know, the crutches, the wooden crutches. Yeah. And then eventually, you know, give you lovely bruises and everything, you know. But I got through all that. And it wasn't just me, you know, I had a very, very strong support network. My mom, may her soul rest in perfect peace, you know, was a rock, you know, and she did everything and anything she could. And, you know, I just thought, when I started to walk, there was a limit in what I could do. But I've always loved dancing. Anyone that knows me knows that I love to dance. And even with the bad hip, you know, I did. You know, and I mean, even now, it's like a badge of honor for me that I would dance anyone under the table.
Wow.
You know, but then it was just a way of me digging deep and making sure that I'm still living.
Brilliant.
And that was what the dancing was really about. There were a lot of things that I realized that I couldn't do. And when you're the only one, and especially when my parents had been given that, you know, scare that I could die at any point in time, I think for me then, it was more like just embrace life, live life. So any opportunity. I did something very stupid once when I was young. My siblings decided to run a marathon to raise money. No, that was in Nigeria. And I decided to join in.
Jesus, you didn't.
I did.
You didn't.
I regretted it, and I'll tell you why. So we all got, and this is just about pushing boundaries. Yeah. Because even with sickle cell, I got used to hearing, and even now you hear so many negative things about sickle cell. Yeah. You know, and there are people, there are young ones out there. And one of the reasons why I do what I do at the moment, and I share my life story with people, is simply because I don't want people behind me that have sickle cell to think that it's the end of their lives.
Thank you.
Life is what you make it. Yeah. unfortunately, we come from a culture, it is our heritage, where we don't talk about things. If you don't talk about it, the myth is it doesn't exist. You have a child that has sickle cell. There are precautions not to have a child that has sickle cell. And I'll talk about that later. But if you find yourself with a child that has sickle cell, you know, you need to remove the negativity.
Stigma.
You know, that stigma that, you know, that child's not going to exist. That child can't live a fulfilled life.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not right.
Yeah.
Life is what you make it. And with regards to the dancing, the marathon and everything, I didn't run the marathon, I started it. And I think I got to the end of the road. And obviously I'd pushed myself a bit too far. And I started to sickle quite badly. So I ended up being carted off to the hospital while they got on with the race. But,
Hallelujah.
you know, but it's, at least I can't sit back and say I didn't try.
Yeah.
And I think that is the message there.
I'll give you 100%.
You know, I didn't try. I tried.
Yeah.
It didn't work out. I didn't listen, you know, and I paid for it.
So you went into dancing?
Yeah, so I did the dancing, and the dancing worked for me.
Did you approach the dance group to be a member, or did you start it yourself, and what was their attitude towards you? Did they say, oh, we don't want you have issues?
I've been very lucky, and I'm blessed in the bit that I think I have a very strong personality. You know, I was actually approached by some friends. Obviously, Freshers Week in uni, they tend to pick out the nice dancers and what have you. Right. And someone just said, oh, you dance very well, you know. And they didn't know. Now, this is the funny thing about it. If you don't tell someone, if I don't tell you that I suffer from sickle cell, if you haven't seen me when I'm in crisis, you will not know.
I was just about to say that, actually. Took this,
you know, you wouldn't know. So I never told them. Eventually they got to know, but it never really affected me that way.
It didn't,
you know,
phase them?
It didn't. No. I think with regards to my friends, I've been blessed that I have a lot of strong people. God has put strong people in my path in life, and for that reason, you know, I think they just see me as Joke. They just see me as Ade. They don't see the sickle cell side to it. They see it when, you know, when I'm down. But they don't tar me with that. They don't see it as a negative. And I think that I've been able to show that inner strength to them, that they see that even though she has it. One of my very good friends says to me that sometimes she actually forgets that I have sickle cell. It's only when I'm on the phone or she gets a text message or something that says, you know, when I'm sort of like said, okay, I got guests now, you know.
Oh, she understands.
My good friends come to say hi, I'm out of action. That is when she remembers, oh, sugar, she does have sickle cell, you know. And that's just because I've been able to manage it.
Okay. So we're gonna, I mean, before we take, we're gonna take an advert break shortly. We need to pay the bills. But what I want to say to people are back, who are watching and listening, if you know anybody who is a victim of sickle cell, please don't give up on them. You heard what she said. Our friends were very supportive. So was our mom. Please don't let them be too much hassle for you. Do not give up on them. Always support them, because you know you could have someone turn out like Joke is today. She's, in my opinion, she might not agree with it, sitting on top of the world. She's achieved everything, and she's still achieving, and I'm really proud of her, and I'm sure you viewers at home are too. So we're going to take a little advertising now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about poetry and about how she is now called in school.
There's a misconception about sickle cell disease. It's not just a black disease.
My mother has sickle cell.
And my brother has sickle cell.
I have sickle cell.
Sickle cell is a serious blood disorder in which the body makes sickle-shaped red blood cells. When the flow of blood is obstructed, it causes excruciating pain and even death.
Stop the misconception about sickle cell disease. Join the sickle cell fight.
Together we can turn a sickle into a smile.
Heritage Television. Television, promoting African culture and heritage at its best. From talk shows that concern you to both local and international news that relates to you. From grassroots football to African children's programs. Heritage Television. We cover your social and special events like weddings, birthdays, church anniversaries, and so on, and broadcast them live on our apps and online. Heritage Television, broadcasting everything about culture and heritage. Heritage Television. We've got it covered. Do download our apps on both Android, iOS, and Windows mobile platform. Heritage Television, your very own TV station.
Don't be fooled by my looks, my smile. You don't know what it's like to walk in my shoes. I know my attitude offends you, but before you decide to cast that stone, ask yourself, what has she been through? What makes her so confident? What makes her so strong? There's always a silver lining behind every cloud, and we will live long.
Thank you very much. That's another dose of what Joke can do. We're going to be talking about the poetry side of things now, because she's a well-established poet as well. Despite all that, she's done a bit of dancing, unless I decide to take her out of retirement. but I can tell you that she is a poet, and she's also the author of a book. She's a writer. So we're going to talk about the poetry side of things. How did this start? I mean, poetry. What brought you into poetry?
I think living with sickle cell, the most important thing for me was you live with a lot of emotional torment. I mean, a lot of people only think about the physical pains and attributes of sickle cell and tend to forget that psychologically living with sickle cell can be very, very damaging. And when you've got a lot of things, because as I said, I come from a family of 5 and I'm the only one that has sickle cell. So you get those moments when you really want to you want the pain to stop. And sometimes it's like, I just want it to stop, period, full stop. I want life to stop when the pain is very bad. Now, coming out of that mindset, it's not something that you can do by just keeping quiet. So what I do, and have been doing for quite a number of years, is I'm more of a cathartic writer.
Okay.
So I write to purge myself.
Okay.
So instead of letting all the thoughts build up, I put my thoughts down on paper. Little lessons that I've learnt, I've put them down on paper. And that was how the book also materialized. And I went through a very, very bad patch over the last 4 years. And I went back and I started reading what I wrote, my poems. And no, it actually didn't really lift me. I had to dig deeper because I thought I was at a certain level when I was writing those. But in all fairness, because of where I was at that point in time in my life, it was dark. It scared me. I had a full book of my own lyrics. And I read the first 5 pages and I hid that book. And I promised never to open it again.
You've had enough.
Because it was dark. And my positive side told me to actually put down other thoughts. You know, you've come this far. That wasn't me. That was the old me. It worked when I needed it to, but with this new leaf that I'm turning,
take the next step.
I need to do something positive. I want to share my feelings, but I want people to be able to draw the strength from it. And it doesn't just have to be about sickle cell. It's about living. There are too many of us out there that spend our lives existing. We hide behind all of these laws that, to me, I think are obsolete. Laws that our forefathers laid down. And I'm not saying they're all wrong. But keeping quiet about things and bottling things in, it doesn't help.
No, it doesn't.
Sometimes people need to know that it's okay to talk about things. It's okay to say, this isn't working for me. That's how we live. People live behind the umbrella of fear, and it stops us living fulfilled lives. So with my poetry, what I decided to do, I thought about it when I wrote my book, 2006 was when I wrote the book.
That's the title of it.
It's called Be a Peak Performer, How to Reach Your Zenith. And it's actually a combination of 3 books. It's about self-confidence, it's about communication skills, and it's also about motivation.
Can you please tell our viewers where they can find this book?
If you actually go onto Trafford Publishing and order them online. If not, if you go onto Crux311 on Facebook and send me a message, I can actually send you a copy out. If you're ordering it from me here, it's £10 a book. Or the other way is if you come to any of my poetry events, my books are always on sale there.
We'll talk about the events as well. Yeah, I mean, and that's the hard copy.
Yeah.
Do people have access to the
an e-copy?
E-copy?
No, I didn't do an e-copy. That's in progress.
Okay.
It's in the pipeline.
Okay.
But I just did a hard copy, so the hard copy is what people would get. It's a self-help book.
Okay.
But back to the poetry and how it sort of like evolved. I wrote for myself, purely for myself to begin with. But then I flipped it, and instead of just concentrating on my sickle cell, I wrote more about life in general, my life.
Yeah.
And I always have these subliminal messages inbuilt that people can then, you know, relate to and move on with things.
Okay.
And after a little while, I thought, well, I am doing this for me, but how about I put it out there? Now, as a patient or a sufferer of sickle cell, I then decided to, which I've done 4, I do poetry evenings, and I raise money for the sickle cell charity here in the UK. Okay,
which is, can you tell our viewers? Because people might be interested in supporting your charity.
Okay. I actually just work under the umbrella of the Sickle Cell Society. So if you just go online and type in the Sickle Cell Society. But to actually, if you are willing to fund me, I have a Just Giving page. And if you just type in Crux311 and that's Crux311 in numbers. You can actually donate there, and that money goes directly to the Sickle Cell Foundation. And what they do loads of different events for not just the sufferers, but also for the families that need a bit of respite. They put on days, they put on events, and that's what it is. We're in hard times here in UK, right. And funding is being cut.
Yeah.
And that was when I decided to put my evening on, and it's purely for charity. I don't make any money off it. Everything I earn at the moment, I have been able to raise about £726 thereabout, just through my evenings alone. And what I also do, that platform is also for any young and up-and-coming creative artists. Whether you are a poet, you don't have to be a poet. You could be a songwriter, you could be a singer, a dancer. You know, contact me and I can put you on the bill. I won't pay you, but the idea behind that is there are people that have talents. And to make it big in the creative world, you know, it's 99% talent and 1% luck.
Yeah. And
that luck really comes from being on a platform somewhere.
Yeah.
And I am using an evening with Crux311 and friends as that platform. You know, I stream certain parts of it live. You know, I'm working with you here. So I've got another platform with Heritage Television, yes. You know. So people will get to see these young people. And you never know when that young person's luck might just fall into sync. So that's part of what it really is. Yeah. I think the other thing that I need to share with your viewers is that because there's so much stigma that sits in front, behind and beside sickle cell disorder, it's not as scary as people think. Back in the day it was scary because the doctors didn't even know what they were doing.
Absolutely.
And the truth is, no two sickle cell patients are the same. When I go into hospital, I actually tell the doctors what I need. They would work out the dosage of what they need to give me. But the long and short of it is I know who I am. Yeah. And most sickle cell patients do the same. And it's hard enough having to deal with the fact that you know that you have a greater chance of not making it through the day. You could wake up, my first poem, you know, I woke up perfectly okay this morning, but soon reality kicks in. I could wake up in the morning and within the next couple of hours, my blood starts to do what it wants to do. Oh dear. And then there's the pain. You know, I've been carted off from work before in an ambulance because I couldn't deal with the pain and I needed to get myself to hospital, you know. And for those of you that suffer from sickle cell, embrace it. It doesn't stop you living. If there's one thing that I really want you to be able to do is embrace what you have, but make yourself who you want to be. The truth of the matter is, in life, everyone's going to die. To me, having sickle cell, what it really means to me is the fact that I might have a greater chance of leaving before the prescribed time. That's what it means. But it doesn't stop me from living in the present and making the best that I can.
Absolutely. I mean, you are a testimony to the fact that you've lived well beyond the prescribed time anyway, and then you're still living and you're still achieving tremendously. I mean, you've really done a lot. First of all, I got to say this on air. I'm buying a book of you, so it's not going back with you. And
I'll sign it.
Yeah, thank you. And then obviously I would from henceforth be very involved with whatever you want to do if you take me on board.
Thank you.
That's the little I can give back to society. I mean, please allow me to dedicate, if you may, this program to a little boy, my best friend's son, who died of sickle cell some years ago, quite a lot of years ago, and he didn't make it. He wasn't so lucky. Wrote to me, Onibuje, he also continued to rest in peace. He was the first child, first son, and he didn't make it. So the sickle cell affects me. It really does affect me. And that's not the only person. I've known quite a few people who didn't make it as well. I know some people who are still struggling with it. Now, in this poetry, who was your mentor? Did you ever see anybody that really inspired you directly or indirectly and say, oh, you know what, just like this person, I want to be?
There's only one person,
yeah,
and I'm very sure you won't be surprised when I mention the name. A legend in true right. The person that wrote And Still I Rise, Maya Angelou. I listened to her works.
Incredible.
You know, she was an awesome woman.
Was, yes.
You know, and I believe that there are so many strong black women out there.
Yeah.
And in all fairness, she really inspired me to put together an evening with Crux311 and friends.
Wow.
You know, I never had the privilege, unfortunately, to hear her live. There was a time I know she came to England, and unfortunately for me, I was stuck in a hospital bed.
God, yeah.
So I couldn't actually go then. But when you hear stories, her story, you know, nothing to do with sickle cell, but how you can pick yourself up against and rise against adversity and make sure that your life, you know, isn't just about you. I say to people, to my friends, yes, I'm Joke or Ade. When I take on the persona of Crux311, Crux311 is bigger than me. Crux311 is an embodiment of growth. Crux311 is an embodiment of motivation. Crux311 stands for strength, pure grit and determination. As long as you can actually conceive a thought in your head and you believe it in your heart and you put that into action and you work for it, the sky is the limit. I don't believe in ceilings. There are no glass ceilings. And failure to me is not attempting. I laughed about the marathon. It wasn't a failure because I tried it. I learned the hard way, but let it be said, I still tried. And that is what life is about.
Failure is not trying.
Exactly.
But trying is effort.
Exactly. You put the work in.
Absolutely.
And that's the important thing. You know, and one of the things I didn't say earlier on, that if you don't mind, I just want to say is parents, you know, a big shout out in all humility with everyone out there that has a child or had a child that has sickle cell. It's hard being that parent. I'm lucky in the bit that I made sure that my children would never have sickle cell.
How do you do that? Because people need to know.
Yeah.
How do you, people, I've been told that it's avoidable.
It is avoidable.
Can you please educate us?
So, you have sickle cell. Both my children know that before they commit to anyone, in a weird way, they should have a blood test done. Both my children, the best that I could get would be carriers. So both my children are carriers. And whoever they want to end up with, or at the moment when they think something serious might start to happen, they need to get the blood check. If you have, so for my children, I would advise them. Love is funny. Love does what love wants to do.
Yeah.
You know. But the precaution there would be try not to commit to someone that has sickle cell trait, because you stand a chance.
The traits.
Yeah, the trait.
Not even full blown.
Not full blown. If you are a carrier, and if you don't know, please, it's a simple blood test
Just go
to find out. I think part of our problems here is that a lot of people are out there and they have the sickle cell, but it's a trait. Okay. And they won't suffer crisis, but the gene is there. And the only way you're going to know is if you have a blood test. So get your blood tested and you'll find out whether you're a carrier. If you're a carrier, please try to avoid marrying another carrier, and please try to avoid having children with with someone like me. Well, I'm too old to have kids, but you know, someone like me, someone that has sickle cell. That's the main thing, because it's a recessive disorder.
Why did you say, sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
This is quite, why did you say please don't have children with someone that has sickle cell?
Okay.
It obviously it would not affect the two of you, but the child.
The child. And that was why I made sure my partner was AA. And
what does that mean for VR?
Well, that simply means that all your red blood cells you have the normal dome-shaped red blood cells. For people like me, our red blood cells, when they do not have enough oxygen, they lose that donut shape. So if you think it's a bit like having a round wheel, as we do, and it's moving the car along, and all of a sudden you have a square wheel, or you have a wheel that has like a crescent, you know, or it's got a wobbly sickle shape. They go back to that shape when they are not carrying oxygen. So when you have enough oxygen, your red blood cells will perform normally. What then happens is, when you have an oxygen depth, which is what happened when I had the marathon, I pushed myself over that limit, and I had an oxygen depth that was too much for my body to cope with. And what then happened was my red blood cells started to build up. So it's a bit like a bottleneck. One gets stuck, so it's rolling along, it goes down on the end that doesn't have a smooth surface, so it's stuck. And the next one stops, and the next, so you have a blockage.
All right, so people trying to escape from a burning vehicle, a bus, and everything.
Yeah, and you get a bottleneck,
a tiny little door.
Exactly, and everyone and that's the best analogy.
Okay.
You know, everyone trying to run out of a burning building through one door, you know.
And the door is not big enough.
It's not big enough.
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much what happens.
Okay.
So when that happens, that is what triggers the crisis, and that's when you get the bone pain. And it is, I must say, it's excruciating.
Oh dear.
So to reduce the chances of you bringing another person into this world that has sickle cell, you know, that's a simple precaution.
Okay.
It's a recessive disorder.
Yeah.
So that is why that people that have the trait don't suffer.
Okay.
You need to have 2 abnormal cells
in the body.
Yes, and it could be an SS or an SC, and there are other strands. You know, you need to have both of them for you to have the disorder itself.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to have take a little break for an advert now. I mean, for those of us, I mean, the SS and AAs and ABs could be a bit confusing, but those of us who don't understand what this means, just simply go make an appointment, see your GP, say, do me a blood test and tell me if I have sickle cell or traits of sickle cell. At least that is the first hurdle to cross. So we'll take an advert now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about all the things. We'll talk about royalty, and then we'll also talk about going back to school.
There's a misconception about sickle cell disease. It's not just a black disease.
My mother has sickle cell.
And my brother has sickle cell.
I have sickle cell.
Sickle cell is a serious blood disorder in which the body makes sickle-shaped red blood cells. When the flow of blood is obstructed, it causes excruciating pain and even death.
Stop the misconception about sickle cell disease. Join the sickle cell fight.
Together we can turn a sickle into a smile.
Right, welcome back. It's Rokstedi Time with DJ Jossy Ladd and Heritage Television, and today we are doing a totally different form of entertainment, and we've got a poet. She was also a dancer. She is royalty. She's a teacher, deputy head of a school, and she's also an events organizer. I didn't even know she organized events. So she's a woman of many parts, and today we have in the studio with us Adejoke Haastrup, popularly known by a poetic name, Crux311. Where did you first, where and when did you, and at what age did you first stand up in front of people, in front of an audience, and read poetry or recite poetry?
I was church back in Nigeria.
Yeah.
We used to have these talent things, and that's the first recollection where I actually stood up, and it wasn't actually my poem then, okay, but I read something that I had picked up.
But it was your first audience?
Yes, that was my first audience.
How old were you then?
I must have been about 10, 11, and I loved it.
I thought it was a daunting task.
No, I loved it. I sang in the choir growing up, and I loved being...
She's a singer as well.
That was back in the day, before other things happened, and the voice is gone now. But yeah, I actually sang in the choir. I was also part of the national choir back in the day then. We went to a church, it was called Church of the Lord. It was an Aladura church, and we used to go to... we used to have this mount. They used to call it Tabora, and I was part of Tabora, yep. And I was actually part of what they called the selected choir. Wow. You know, back in the day then. Don't ask me to sing now because I can't carry a tune or anything. So instead of singing, I just recite. I do spoken word.
That's fantastic. Now what we're going to ask you next is, okay, this journey started. You're an author, you're a poet. What happened with school? All of a sudden, you are now the head of a school. Did you start off when you came back to the school? Did you start off as a teacher, or was that what you always wanted to do?
Subconsciously, I think so. When I graduated, I was lucky because part of my course, it was a sandwich course, so I took a year out, industrial attachment, in Nigeria, and I worked at John Holt's then. And when I finished uni, I got a job there, and I got tired of the day-to-day there, because as a chemist I could tell you my whole year and what would happen in what month, what we will be doing, what goes on the production line, and it was so mundane.
Boring.
It was boring. Then an offer came through and I got a job in Germany. So I applied for a job in Nigeria, got the job in Germany, and I moved there, but it was also to work with my degree. Now, you know, sickle cell, as I said, with my sickle cell, God has compensated me in so many ways that there are things that have happened in my life that I can't actually explain. And, you know, one of the things that has kept me going is my faith. You know, I give everything to God because that is what sees me through every day, sees me through my crisis. And I was in Germany for about 2 years, and I got tired working as a chemist. And I then came to London, I sort of, okay, do you know what, I'm going to jack it in now. I left uni, went straight into work, and I thought, do you know what, I want to live a little, I just want to go and enjoy life. So came to England and just kicked back for a while. And then I started looking for a job with my degree, and I kept getting these letters, you know, you're overqualified. You're overqualified. And this was trying to find it in my field, what I'd been used to, analytical chemistry.
Yeah.
And at some point I thought, okay, do you know what? I've spent all the money I came into England with. I need to start making more money. And I took a job as a science technician in a secondary school. And I thought to myself, I need to just test the waters. Maybe I should go into teaching. And I did that for about 2-3 years. And then I left and went to do...
You got bored with science?
It wasn't so much of getting bored being a science technician. I think for me it was more about me. It wasn't challenging enough. I was selling myself short. And I looked at some of the teachers, no disrespect to them, but I thought, damn, I could do this with my eyes closed. So that's the little cocky side to me. But I thought, well, why not? Researched it and then went to Goldsmiths for a year. Yep, went to Goldsmiths for a year, got my PGCE, and that's how I started teaching. Now, the reason why I said that, you know, subconsciously, when I was very young, I used to get my neighbors, they were younger than me, and I'll get them into the living room, and Dad got us this blackboard, and I would teach them mathematics. I had to go to a lesson at some point. Parents, you know what it's like in Nigeria. And at some point, my tutor there got me to tutor some younger kids in mathematics. So somewhere there, being a teacher, that vocation was always part of me. And I haven't looked back. And then obviously the rest is pretty much history. You know, during my course, after 3 years in teaching, because I had managerial and leadership skills before I came into teaching, I then became a head of department.
Okay.
And obviously having children and
everything. And secondary school?
Yes, I've always been a secondary school teacher. I don't have the patience for the little ones. You know, thank God my children are older now, because Lord help me, you know. And at some point I did a master's degree again at Anglia Ruskin. And I just kept moving up. So every time I applied for a job, you know, and it's not like I got the jobs, you know, there it's on a platter of gold. You know, what I noticed is the higher you go, the more skewed it becomes. So you push more applications out, you know, and then you're getting for interviews, and then you're always the bridesmaid, more like, you know that saying, you know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But when the time was right,
I'm listening.
I got the jobs. I was an assistant head teacher for a while, and now I'm a deputy head in a different school. And that's pretty much it. The idea behind the promotion, I love teaching, I love being in the classroom, but as I said earlier on, my moral compass is more about imparting my knowledge and having impact on children that come from underprivileged backgrounds. And I believe that I can influence that more the higher up. So the next goal, just watch out, is me as a head teacher. And that is going to happen.
Oh yeah, I will be daft to doubt you because with your sense and level of determination, yeah, definitely I know you'll get there. I was going to ask you, how does it feel being a deputy head? But I'm not going to ask that again, because I know that when you become the head, I'll bring you back and I'll come and ask you that. I mean, so we've run out of time now. Yeah. But it's been really nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.
With you. As we always do, I want you to sign off by giving. We usually tell my guests to give the young ones a word of advice, but now I want you to give not just the young ones, parents as well, people with sickle cell, people that are fighting with sickle cell, people who have loved ones who are fighting with sickle cell, a word of advice. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Immediately after that, you say a little poem about Heritage Television. Just bring us up with a nice little personalized poem, and then we'll shake hands and say goodbye.
All right then. Okay, so to everyone out there that suffers from sickle cell, to everyone out there that is related or in some shape or form connected to anyone that has sickle cell, I'm taking this medium to urge you to look to the sky and always be positive. Yes, there are hard times. There are dark clouds. But there is always and always will be a silver lining behind that. So for that reason, keep going strong. The sky's the limit. And for Heritage TV, I always remember walking through the door, Mom saying to me, "Rántí ọmọ ẹni tí wọ́n ń ṣe." It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We all have roots that are firm in the ground. Heritage TV is all about going back to those roots. You might be in England, you might be in Asia, you might be in America. The Yorubas have an adage, Ile labo simioko. So to every one of you, my Odua people out there, my Igbo people out there, my Hausas out there, remember home. Thank you.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we've come to the end of this program, and I've had the privilege of having a discussion with this wonderful lady, Adejoke Haastrup, Crux311. She was born here, she went back home, she achieved, she came back here, she's continuing to achieve. She's a deputy head of a school and will be the head of a school, an entrepreneur, an author, a poet, but yet she speaks the Yoruba language without any accent. She's not speaking with a funny accent. She's speaking it like me and you. Please, let us borrow a leaf from her. We are Yorubas, we are Nigerians, we are Igbos, we are Hausas, we are Africans, we are Swahili, we are Latinos, but we should never forget our roots. Signing out on that note, this is DJ Jossy Ladd saying to you on Heritage Television, Rokstedi Time, goodbye and God bless.
There's a misconception about sickle cell disease. It's not just a black disease.
My mother has sickle cell.
And my brother has sickle cell.
I have sickle cell.
Sickle cell is a serious blood disorder in which the body makes sickle-shaped red blood cells. When the flow of blood is obstructed, it causes excruciating pain and even death.
Stop the misconception about sickle cell disease. Join the sickle cell fight.
Sickle.